Welcome to Hollers and Hills, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of East Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains. The tourism hub welcomes millions of visitors a year, but it's also home to generations rooted in its hollers and hills. From tents to RVs, outdoor resorts spread across the foot of the Smokies. But that wasn't the case 30 years ago when developer Jimbo Conner opened his first campground in Sevierville. He's witnessed Sevier County grow and helped develop it with campsites, vacation rentals, restaurants, even an equine training facility. In this episode, we talk about Jimbo's roots, accommodating and attracting tourists, and his success with Tennessee walking horses. Hello and welcome to Hollers and Hills. I'm your host, Beth Haynes, alongside Austin Williams. And boy, are we excited for this episode. It is a guy that Austin knows extremely well, Jimbo Conner. He's been developing Sevier County from vacation rentals to outdoor resorts, campgrounds for 30 years, 30 plus years, I guess we can say. You own Conner Properties, but you two are business partners.
That's right, yep.
And you get along, yeah.
Most of the time.
How did you guys get together? And obviously you're both from Sevier County, but when did that partnership form?
We just had good conversations about what I did and investing in Sevier County, and it was sort of, my kids used to ask me all the time growing up, Dad, what do you do? What is a developer? And I would say, well, you know, it's really too hard to explain. We do everything from off the floors to, you know, make the bank payments. So we talked about that. I think I knew his family. I went to school with his dad, and we just hit it off real well. I liked the fact that he went to Carson and I graduated there. My kids were going to go there, and just had a good connection. Yeah,
and that's what I love. The family's deeply rooted in this area, continuing to work with one another to continue to carry on the legacy. So let's talk about growing up in Sevier County. What was it like for you?
Well, my dad was the car dealer here. He was right in the middle of town, right beside Carl Lumbee Hardware Store, which his family has. And I lived with my mom in Pigeon Forge, but she was the clerking master here at the courthouse. And she raised 4 boys. I'm the youngest, and she was a real stickler for everything.
She'd have to be.
And so we grew up in Pigeon Forge, and I have 2 older half-brothers that are Ogles, and having 1 full brother that's 1 year older than I am. But we walked home from Pigeon Forge School, which is now where City Hall is. We would leave at the first bell and just walk across the highway, walk across the Old Mill Bridge, and walk home. We lived out by the golf course every day. And then I'd get on my bike and go back to football practice, and then she'd usually pick me up after football practice. So it's, you know, town seemed like a pretty busy place then. But, you know, I've gotten older and I've got to see it change real slow, so it doesn't seem like it's changed that much, but boy, has it.
What are the most striking changes for you?
Well, I guess my granddad was the sheriff back in the 50s here, and he lived right on the parkway in Pigeon Forge. And the Colonial House Motel sits where his house does now. And we would play wiffle ball. My grandmother lived to be 102. She would pitch to me and my brother, and we'd knock the ball out in the highway, and we'd just run and get it.
Pigeon Forge Parkway, right?
Pigeon Forge Parkway. And so even though there were people coming to Pigeon Forge then, you know, it seemed a lot the same, but boy, is it different. I mean, you know, now I can't imagine letting my 6 and 8 year old kids even near the sidewalk in Pigeon Forge, or, you know, definitely not run across the highway. So it's just changed a lot that way.
As a developer, you want to see things evolve and grow and change, but is that also hard to see your home change, expand? Talk about that and kind of staying true to your memories and the roots.
Well, you know, I haven't had a hard time necessarily with the change because it's happening all around you. I've been lucky enough to be right in the middle of it. You know, I've got to experience it then, and I got to experience the growth. You know, there's not any point in fighting it, especially if you lived in town like my granddad did, like a lot of other folks did. I mean, it wasn't like the development. You were doing a development that was going to ruin somebody's home or their yard or whatever. It just came to them, and that's the way Pigeon Forge did. It just took over. There aren't but about 2 houses in Pigeon Forge now. One of them's Dan Conner's beside Cracker Barrel. He's still there. And there's a couple there on River Road, but other than that, everybody's gone. Yeah. It used to be all houses and very, very few hotels, very few businesses, really.
Most of the folks that we've had the opportunity to have on the podcast have been here for many generations, as your family has. Before your granddad, how did your family come to Pigeon Forge? And this is interesting to get to ask you this question because we've had a million conversations, but I don't think that's one question. Yeah, I've never asked that question. So it's
my dad's dad came down out of Sugar Lands, and he is a horse trader, and he came down here and wound up getting in the car business with the Ashley family right in the middle of town. And my mom's father, Frank Marshall, I'm not sure where he came from exactly. It was somewhere close around. I don't know if it was in the mountains or I just really don't know. But he was the principal for 35 years, Pigeon Forge principal. So then, as I grew up, everybody played ball for my papa. Your youth teams now, when they win the East Tennessee State Championship, it's a huge deal. He won it 17 times while he was coaching. And a lot of the folks who are now dying off, they were big-time ball players. Caddy Bob Whaley and all these names I've heard all my life, and then now Caddy Bob Whaley's grandson, Jacob Whaley, is my son's best friend, and he played for me growing up in sports, but a lot's changed. My family's moved in here. My mama she ran the cafeteria at school, and then so our family I didn't have a big family. Yeah. I had my mom just had one sister, and my dad I didn't have any cousins, really. We're growing, as the Conner family's growing now in Sevierville, because I've got 2 kids, and I got 3 grandkids. But around here, like Austin's probably got 100 cousins or something. Everybody's his cousin. And I don't have any, really.
Yeah, it's a
but we've been here a long time.
Yeah. How did you get into development? Did it start with campgrounds?
I don't know when it started, but I'll tell you when I think it started was I grew up beside Cotton Bear at Gatlinburg Golf Course, and he let me go over and taught me how to play golf. He let me hunt golf balls. And I'd clean those golf balls up and sell them for $0.25 apiece. I thought I was getting rich. I'd go find 80 or 100, and some of them be brand new, and they wouldn't give me a nickel for them, and some of them would have a little mark on them, and they was worth $0.25, and I couldn't ever figure it out. So I think that started the entrepreneur part of it. And then my family was just somewhat developers. My granddad moved out of Pigeon Forge. He bought a farm, which is now Bell Meadows subdivision. And, that's what birthed all that back in 1974 when that started. But, fast forward, I went to college, got an accounting degree. I tell people I can't hardly read and write, but I'm like Rain Man with numbers. And that's really true.
Okay.
I got an accounting degree, and the professor would always say, James, what are you going to do when you get out of here? And it's up to you. You have to do it. I said, well, I'm not going to keep the books. I'm going to hire Kim Ridge back here that's going to work for Price Waterhouse with a 4.0 and to do my books. I'm going to start building stuff. So I don't know how it got started, but it just was already in there, I think. And when I got out, I graduated, and my dad had just traded for a piece of property here in town, and I started a campground. I graduated in a accounting degree, bought a backhoe 2 weeks later, started digging ditches. And that was the beginning.
And then we got that campground?
That was River Plantation. Then we built Damon's Restaurant, which was at 5 Oaks. And then we went to Pigeon Forge in '97, started the first condo development, and we later built 4 of them up there. That lasted 15 years, I guess. So it just one thing after another. And it just, I don't know. I hear people say all the time, I just wished I could figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, I don't have time to think about that.
I'm just doing.
I need to be doing something.
I'm just busy doing. Well, let's talk about the outdoor resorts. You've got the River Plantation RV campground. the Ridge, and then you're actually working on a property right next to Museum of Appalachia,
Yes.
which I know is not Sevier County, but
Yes.
that's where you talk about heritage and roots in East Tennessee. That's a special place in Clinton.
Well, we started River Plantation. I had it 24 years, and I actually sold it a couple of years ago. And when I had already started the Ridge, and I had a health scare, and I thought for a minute I had an aneurysm, a heart aneurysm, and wound up we went and got it taken care of. I'm as healthy as a horse now, but I was scared a little bit for a little, and I was trying to get things situated in case I was leaving here. I got it ready to open and got my stuff, set up for my children. But I just love that business. I went and we did, I've had an interest in 14 or 15 restaurants, never as actually the operator, but just as a partner in a restaurant. Seen a lot of that go and come, Hooters and Damon's and Buddy's Barbecue and several things around here. But I didn't have any passion about it. I was passionate about the campground business, and I stayed out there, and it was my first big deal. I would literally spend the night there some nights because I just worked so late. I want to be there when it started early, and when you get that entrenched in something, it just becomes part of you. And then my papa got sick when he was older, and we built him a little cabin, and he'd pick up rocks in a 5-gallon bucket every day and help me work around there, and that's just where I was supposed to be. And now I tell people when I talk to them, I helped Chad Dixon a little bit when he started Anchor Down out here at the lake, and he was a schoolmate of mine, and just talking in general, not really, I don't do consulting, but I do free consulting. A lot of campgrounds have been built on my front porch of my business, and
How many campgrounds, so in the 90s when River Plantation opened up, how many campgrounds were in Sevier County? Do you know?
There weren't very many. When we went, there's a few out Wares Valley Road, and then was Twin Creeks up on 321 in Gatlinburg, and there just weren't very many. There was one out here on the one on Boyd's Creek Road out here on Highway 66 was there.
Just a handful.
We actually went to the bank, my dad did, to get the loan to start that, and they turned him down. They
Really?
said, you should, maybe you can plant corn down there, Jack.
How many campgrounds now?
We've built, I've helped with 2 or 3 others, but I've only built 3 myself, and which is a lot. One of them is 50 acres, one of them was 45 acres, and one of them was 20 acres. So those are big ones. Used to campgrounds were 6 or 8 acres. And about the time we started building River Plantation, I made the sites bigger.
And then you transitioned to vacation rentals, right?
We did. Started building some condos. We developed a partnership here with 5 of the local guys, and we went up in 1997 and built our first building. And I actually went on site and moved a trailer in there, and we sold them. And I was there every day for the construction of the first building. And that's just what you did. I didn't know you needed to go out and give somebody $100,000 and ask them for some consulting advice. I just got up and went to work and, stayed there all day while they were building it, carried block or whatever. And, I wouldn't do that now. Now I'd hire somebody just to watch after that.
Gosh, but now when you look at the footprint of vacation rentals, cabins, campgrounds, I mean, it's overwhelming. Did you have any idea that this area would be so attractive to
Zero.
tourists?
People like to give me credit and say, well, we want to talk to you about this. Have you got just a minute to talk to us? As if I'm, I've got a thesaurus or something with some answers in it that I can just reach in there and get. I was just lucky that I was here when that transition was going on, and we live in a greatest part of the country. I mean, I've been all over the place now and looked around, and if you own something here, it appreciated. And if you had real estate or had something and you were accidentally or on purpose made the decision to buy some land and do something, it appreciated. And it makes you look smart. But great story there. My papa, Frank Marshall, he went over and looked at the Jake Thomas farm in Pigeon Forge. And he said, I'd see a car go out the road there, and go out there, and then they started having a few overnighters stay there in their little bed and breakfast type place, and a few more went. Well, they asked me if I wanted to buy that, and it's $7,500. And he said, and my papa, he worked as a security guard in Oak Ridge, and he worked counting tons of sand when they built the road over the mountain in North Carolina, and he just did whatever he needed to do when he wasn't the principal in the off-season school. And he had $7,500. He was really tight, and he had every nickel he'd ever made. And he said, I should have just bought that. Well, it sold for $20 million back in 1998 or something, and now now it's worth $300 million, I guess.
Should have bought that.
Oh yeah, but that's the point.
Yeah.
We didn't know. I don't think some families obtained a lot of land and appreciated themselves into wealth.
Yeah.
Through that. We had some land up there and that we've held on to through the years, and it appreciated and makes us look smart. But the truth is, we just enjoyed living here, and we were just in a good place.
Yeah. I'm curious to learn more about your interest in horses and equestrian venues. I know you have a farm, and you're very tied to Tennessee walking horses. You mentioned, was it your grandfather that was a horse
My grandfather,
trader?
who was his name was E.R. Conner. He was the Sevier County sheriff in the 50s. And he came here from the family did, and prior to that, he loved horses, evidently. That was, I was only 8 years old when he died, so I never really knew him that well, but I did get to spend quite a bit of time with him. After he passed away, my grandmother would say, oh, you're just spitting an image of him, And I think it was just in my blood, horses was. I went to a horse sale with John McClure and Jim Ogle, and then went horseback riding with them, and I just loved it. And then Bob Barker was a guy he's passed away now, but I went to his house, which is sitting where Splash Country is now. And he had a horse, and I caught it out there in the field and got on a bucket and jumped on its back, and it threw me. And I jumped up, I called John McClure, and I said, I'm going to buy that horse. His name was Shaky. It was my first. I kept him until he was 29 years old. But I just fell in love with it. We started going to South Fork. There'd be 30 of us at a time. Go up there, and we'd take refrigerators and stoves and, stay for 4 or 5 days and cook breakfast. And then I had a friend named Charlie Terry. He was an attorney in Morristown, and his son Brack went to college with me, and I bought my first horse with him, and then I've been in it ever since. I don't even know, that was in the late 90s, and I just loved it. And then it's just grown. It's a thing you can't explain really when you have a love for something. Some people race cars and spend every dime they've got. I spent all my money on horses on the way through, and it was an entertainment to me. I didn't travel a lot. I didn't do other things. I wanted a better horse. And we kept buying them, and then I got a guy to train. I built a barn. That was just, I wasn't going to pay a trainer the rest of my life, so I just hired one and put him in my barn, and we started training other people's horses. And that's just grown and grown. We've now got I'm trying to think how big the building is over here. We've got around 50,000 square feet. And we have an indoor riding arena, and we've got 3 full-time trainers, and we train about 60 horses for people all over the country.
It's a full campus. It's a really neat.
Yeah, it's
and so people come from all over.
25 acres. We had a horse show there last weekend because it got rained out in a adjoining county, and they called and said, can we just do it at your place? And so they just moved the whole horse show up here. And we have a couple of horse shows a year, and I have a colt sale early in the year, what you call a barn party. We have 4,000 or 5,000 people come from all over the country and look at all the young horses that are between 18 months and 2 years old, and try to pick out the winner for this year. And a lot of horses sell at weekend.
And you've had some champions.
Yes, we've got some now. We've just worked our way up the ladder, and I've won the men's championship, and I've got a horse over there that won the 3-year-old world grand championship. And I'm going to be showing him at the celebration last week in August. And I've shown him twice this year, and one time I've ever ridden him. I've owned him since, he's 5 now, and I've owned him since he was about 14 months old.
Are people surprised that you have Tennessee walking horses in such an established training facility here in Sevier County?
I think so. I mean, even folks that I know well, for whatever reason, they wind up over there one day and they say, wow, we've never been in here. We didn't know, you know. I love it. I mean, I wish there was more talk about it, more advertisement about it.
Before we say goodbye, I want to hear what's next. I want to hear what's on your radar and what you vision Sevier County to be in 10 years, 15 years.
Well, you know, our company Compass, we developed it a couple of years back, and Austin runs that, but we think so much alike. You know, we have goals that we look at each week, each day probably, and think about you know, housing in Sevier County and the things that Sevier County needs. How can we be a good steward of the resources and the land and everything we have here in Sevier County? And so it's cool to have a business like that. It's nice to get in a part of my life where I don't have to just find something where I can eat. You know, I can actually try to do something that works financially, but also does a lot of good. And that's kind of where I am. My kids are 28 and 31. They're well on their way to getting started in some things, and my daughter's a nurse practitioner, and she's opening a med spa, and we're probably going to open it in another week or two, and we helped her get going. And my son he and I built a dog boarding facility. We have we have a world-renowned groomer. She was on Team USA Grooming, and she came down and now is a 50-50 partner with my son just as a few weeks ago. They're moving here from Minnesota. So things are just, you know, that's what's next for me, passing of the torch. Just, you know, he is full of energy, and his mind works like mine. And, you know, it's a little scary, to be honest with you. You know, if he goes through everything I went through, I hate it for him, but, you know, but he's going to have fun. So
talk something about Connect. I know that's one of the big projects I mean, you've got that bull by the horns and working on that a lot. Connect
Church has been probably the greatest project we've ever done. When we bought the Ridge Campground, the Ridge Outdoor Resort property, it had this huge, it was a 43,000 square foot building, and it had state-of-the-art everything. I mean, a couple $1 million worth of sound equipment and stage, and you know, so we planted a church there. There was a group, you know, there's a whole background to that, but it was just a miracle how all that happened. God had his hand in it. And it's become, you know, I think we had 24 or 2,800 for Easter this year. In 5 years. There was 42 there the first day I went. I told my wife, I said, you know, we just came as a courtesy to say, well, yeah, we'll come and for the first day or whatever. I said, God wants me to join this. And she said, me too. And we did. And now it's grown to, you know, over 2,000 people there on Easter. And I'm not sure how many members we have, but that's evolved into 3 services on every morning. It's right there in my campground.
Wow.
3 services. I don't know how many people we run through there, 1,200 maybe on a Sunday. And now we're building a Christian school. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was able to help in that with getting out looking for property, and one of the hardest piece of property I ever bought. This roadblocks kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and finally God showed us a plan. We got the best piece of property at the best price from the best people. And now we've got it all graded and everything, and we've got the plans done. I'm actually meeting this week to look at a company out of Oklahoma is doing the plans, and we're trying to gather up the money to start. Yeah. But the land's paid for and the grading's paid for, and it's been an awesome thing to be involved in.
And I think, you know, you talked some about how we try to focus on utilizing the resources that we've been given and opportunities and be thoughtful in how they impact the community. And the Ridge is a perfect example of had a great successful campground, but you've got this enormous building, how's it utilized, and now all of a sudden a really prospering and fast growing church is sort of born out of the campground. And now Compass is helping to take our development skills and utilize what we can do well and help the church create a campus that's going to have a Christian school part of it. And I think that's one thing that it's always been, we've been very much aligned on is like, okay, yes, we want to do development that's successful, but how do we utilize that platform to do good?
Yeah.
So
lots ahead.
Lots ahead, I hope.
I don't think you're winding down. I think you're still very busy.
You know, I keep everybody.
Passing that torch. I think you got a strong
Yeah,
grip on it
well,
still.
another day goes by, somebody goes, I thought you were slowing down. And I said,
Yeah.
well, I did too. I don't know what happened, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
that's what you told me when we first started
I
on
know.
our first project. I think
know.
I'm going to slow down and not do anything
I hear
else.
those words a lot. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Fun getting to know
I
you.
enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks. This episode was shot and edited by Link Hudson. Hollers and Hills is recorded at the Pines in downtown Sevierville. We have more stories and videos on our Hollers and Hills website. Share your Smoky Mountain memory when you log on. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.